Hello everyone. In this session, I would like to discuss about how to pass the data from my child component to parent component in Angular. First, let me draw the flow. Open my paint. Let's take this is your root component. It's nothing but your bootstrap component. Inside this component, there has one component loaded. Let's say this component name is like A component. Simple. You can give any name. Inside this A component, there has one more component is there. That component is like B component. Now, our requirement is like, I want to pass the data from my child to parent component. First of all, which component we can say like a child component, which component we can say like a parent component. First, say this. Here, this is my A component. Inside this A, my B loaded. The loaded component with respect to A is like a children. That means my B is a children to my A. My B where it is loaded inside my A component, so that my A is the parent to my B. So here B is my child component and my A is like a parent component. Inside my B, there has some data is there. Okay, let's take some data like take one scenario, simple scenario. I have one name is there, one text box is there. This is my click. Inside my child component, one text box is there, one button is there. If I click on the button, whatever the data you enter, that data should have to go to my parent component. Inside the parent component, you can display that one. You can display that one. That is my requirement. Pass the text box data from my child component to parent component, means B to A. First of all, develop this application. The view should be looks like this. So create an Angular application. I created this Angular application by using Angular CLI. I run this application using one command, that is ng serve is the command. Ng serve is the command. I run this one. If you see this, it's compiled successful. I want to view this application in the browser. This is my port number 4200 in my localhost. So total, this welcome message is printed from where? From my root component. Here my root component is like a app component. This is my app component.html content. First of all, I wanted to take two components first. Create two components. Come here, open the command prompt. How we can create the component? Ng generate component. A is one component. A is one component. Just it's take like few seconds. Just wait. This is the command, you can get it. Ng generate, G for generate, C for component. Okay, and then we can create one more component is like a B component. As per our flow, root component contains A contains B. Like that you can load it. My root component is like app component contains A. Here A, if you observe, app component.ts is the file to represent the component. Here the selector section, see this is the component section. Selector is there. This selector we are going to use to load your component. So you can load here. Inside the root component, my A component loaded. Inside my A component, load your B component. If you open the B component, this is my B component representation file. In the component section, see the selector. This is the selector name we are going to use to load the file. So go to your A component. Inside my A component, you can load your B component. Done. Now if you come here, say this. Welcome is the root component. Inside this A component loaded, inside this B component loaded. But our requirement, if you observe, B component contains one text box, one button. So that go to your B component, just you can say like this. Page 3, this is a B component. I want one button, one text box, name, one text box, and you can take one button, click, done. Now if I enter some data here, if I click on the button, that data inside my A component, I want to print it. So go to my A component. This is my a component.html. Here I want to print it. Here I want to print it. For now, I'm going to hard code the data. In that place, I want to print like this. So first of all, start the requirement. If I click on the button, I want to take the data and I have to send this data to parent. So first of all, handle the click event. Handle the click event. Where is my b component? This is the one. Just write. Click is my event. Function click is my event handler. Now define this method in the component. Done. I want to take the data. So that first of all, the data I want to store by using one of the variable called as a name. This name I can use to hold the data which you entered in the text box. This is my text box. If you want to hold the data, if you want to take the data, or if you want to set the data, we have one directive is there. ng model is the directive. It's a two-way binding directive. From view to controller, controller to view also, we can pass the data. It is binding with your variable name. Now come here. Now see this, there has some error is there. ng model is not defined. ng model is not known property. Why? Because you should have to add, if you use like ng model, you have to use like one of the property called as one of the module called as a forms module. So import the module first. Import from @Angular forms. Okay, my module name is like forms module. This module you can load here. Now come here, there is no error, nothing. There is no error, nothing. Now, if I click on enter in my B component, this method is going to execute. Here, I can take the data. How we can take the data? My let name equals to this dot name in the alert for our understanding purpose. This data is coming or not. Just you can check it. Now I enter something. Say this. I have the data. This data I don't want to show in the text box. I want to pass this data to my parent component, a component or not. If you want to pass the data from my children to parent component, we have one decorator is there. Output is the decorator. Use that output decorator. And one more thing is like, not only with the output decorator, by using event emitter, we have to emit the data from my child to parent. So event emitter, you can take it. How syntactically my output is looks like means the decorator we are going to start with @ and it's like a decorator method. Just you can say you have to emit the data from my child to parent. So one variable you can take it. One variable, any variable name you can take it. That variable holds which data will think. Okay, we'll discuss later. Okay, let's take the new emitter is the default value. New event emitter. Okay, whose type is like, okay, based on your requirement, you can give that type. Now this is my output value. It holds some data from my, which is coming from my parent. What is the data? We'll see later. So output is the decorator. Default value we are going to assign like event emitter object. That's it for now. The output decorator variable reference is like f. Now instead of alert, can I emit the data? How we can emit? Any variable if you want to represent inside the component by using current object, we can. It holds emitter, event emitter. Just emit the data. Which data? My name data. My name data. Now, once you emit the data by using this f holds one function that is coming from my parent. Okay. Now, in the child component, just you emit the data, emit this data with this reference. Okay. If you emit this data with this reference means this reference pointing to one function. Which function where we can pass that function means go to your parent component. Go to your parent component. This is the one. This Sachin should not be hard code. That is coming from outside, coming from children. So that first of all, take one simple variable. Simple variable. I don't want a hard code. so that that variable name is like, okay, string. Okay, don't think like that one and this one both should be same. N you can put it. By default, nothing. Okay, by default, not at received data from child. This is the default text. This is the default text. That one you can load here. That one you can load here. See this? By default, not yet received the data from child. When you received, whenever you enter the data, if I click on the button, then only you have to pass the data to this guy or not. That means that time you have to update this name with my children data. So in my children, already I written some piece of code, open my children. If you see this, in my children, we emit the name with this F reference, so that this F value you have to pass from your parent. So how we can pass means, if you want to pass some data to my parent, okay, from my parent to my children, first of all, my children has to load. At the time of loading only we can pass the data. With which reference? Already F you used, right? To that F only you have to pass some data. Okay, in my A component, just you can create one function. Okay, if whenever you emit the data from my children, this function is going to call with my F reference, so that F1 get data. Okay, one function is there. If you want to get the data, how we can get the data? By using one variable, by using argument. The variable reference is like data, you can say like any type. Once you get the data, that data you have to assign here or not. So how we can make this dot n equals to data like this. Now this function can be give to my children with the F reference. He is passing the data as an argument. So the default he is going to emit the data by using event emitter only, right? That data we are going to capture by using a default object, event object, by using default object. Now say this particular function get data referred by F. This F go to your B component. Okay, it holds the event emitter by using emit. Okay, emit method. This data we are going to emit with this reference. Okay, if you call like this internally, it's going to call. My F is pointing to what now? My F is pointing to my F and get data. Okay, that method is going to execute with that argument. Which argument? The name or not. Now come here. Now see this, not at received. If I put like such in here, if I click on this one, okay, now just debug this one, no problem. Is there any errors or there? There is no errors, nothing. Okay, come on. Now come here. This is my B component. This is my B component. Whenever you emit the data, okay, which function? My F is pointing to this function, so that this function has to execute. First of all, check it. This function is going to execute it or not. Now just you can write like this, that function not executed, so that maybe at the output you have to change it. With which reference you are going to pass it? F, right? That one you can pass. Now come here, refresh the page, enter some data, click on this button. Okay, now come here. From here my execution is going to start. Now this is Sachin. If I click on this one, yes, this button is going, this is executed. This dot function dot emit this value. The value is like undefined. See this, that value is like undefined for now. Okay, now it should be named. Okay, Sachin, it's okay, fine. Now you emit this data at the rate output, everything is okay, right? Event emitter done. Okay, now come here. This is like a function representation, right? This is the problem. This is the function representation, right? You are passing the data is like a function. You are passing the data a function representation. We are going to use these braces. If it is like a string, you can use like interpolation or property binding. Now it should work. Now come here. How can I pass the data? Sachin, if I click on the button, now say this, you take the data. Okay, now you emit the data. Now say this, my parent method is executed with this data. Now that parent data, inside the parent, that data is going to display or not. Now whatever the data, for example, don't. For example, this one. Simply you pass the data from my B component to A component or not, means pass the data from my child component to parent component. That's it. Thanks guys. Thanks for watching.